Hi, students. I'm coming to you today from our school library to read a biography. That's a book with true facts about a famous person. The famous person we are reading about today is Jane Goodall. Here we go. The Watcher. Jane Goodall's life with the chimps. This book is authored by Jeanette Winter. That means that Jeanette Winter wrote the words. I also think that Jeanette Winter is the illustrator of the book. That means she drew the pictures. Here we go. The Watcher. Jane Goodall's Life with the Chimps by Jeanette Winter. Jane, Jane, where are you? Jane, can you hear me? Everyone had been searching for hours and hours, looking for little Valerie Jane Goodall. Then, from the hen house, Jane came running to her mother, shouting, I know how an egg comes out. At 5 years old, Jane was already a watcher. Jane watched all the animals in her world, big and small, earthworms, insects, birds, cats, dogs, and horses. Jane quietly watched an English robin at her window for days and weeks. She saw him come closer, closer, then into her room to eat some crumbs off her bed. When spring came, the robin even built a nest in Jane's bookcase. Perched high in her favorite beech tree, Jane read aloud about Dr. Dolittle talking to the animals and Tarzan living with the apes in Africa. She wanted to go to Africa too and talk to the animals and live with the apes. When Jane's school days were over, she worked and saved to buy a ticket to Kenya. She hid her earnings under the parlor rug for safekeeping. Crossing the ocean, Jane stepped on deck and watched the waves. Even when the cold wind blew, she saw all the different blues and greens of the sea and fish that glowed through the dark water. As Jane stepped onto dry land, she closed her eyes in joy. Jane looked for work with animals. A famous scientist, Louis Leakey, was looking for someone to watch and study chimpanzees to help us understand the animal most like us. Would Jane be interested? Yes, she would. Jane traveled to the place in Tanzania where the chimps lived, Gombe. I wanted to learn things that no one else knew. Uncover secrets, she wrote. She set up camp far from any human dwelling. That first night, Jane lay awake, listening to new sounds: the croak of a frog, the hum of crickets, the laugh of a hyena, the hoot of an owl. And looking up at the stars, she knew she was home. At dawn, Jane walked into the forest. Up high, she found a peak to watch from. Every day, she climbed to the peak to look for chimps. But though she could hear their pant, hoot calls to one another, she didn't see them. If you look really closely at this page, you might be able to see some chimps hiding in the trees. They're hard to see. Jane walked down into the forest, hoping a chimp would appear. Look for the chimps. Still, the cautious chimps stayed hidden. Secretly, they watched Jane. When will I see a chimp? She wondered. Can you find the chimps? Then Jane fell ill with malaria. Lying in her tent, burning with fever, she almost lost hope. But when the fever left her body, she tried again to get close to the chimps. More weeks and months passed, till one day the chimps let Jane see them. She stayed in the background, never hid, acted uninterested, and quietly watched. Now Jane watched every day, all day, even huddled in the rain. She saw the chimps accept the rain, not looking for shelter as we do. And she kept notes about it all. You have to be patient if you want to learn about animals, she wrote. This is such a pretty page. Some nights, Jane even slept on the peak to be near the tree where the chimps were sleeping. She woke at dawn and saw them slowly rise from their nests, sit for a spell, then go off to find food. Jane named the chimps. To her, each one was different, just like us. A gray-bearded chimp was the first to approach Jane. She named him David Graybeard. David Graybeard has, yes, he has taken bananas from my hand. So gently, no snatching, she wrote. David Graybeard let Jane come close. She watched him shape a stick into a tool to dig for termites. Before this, nobody knew that wild animals made tools. She watched David Graybeard eat meat. Before this, everybody thought chimps ate only plants. And because David Graybeard trusted Jane, now the other chimps let Jane come close too.